Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Friday, July 26th, 2019. Carbon tax shows new signs of life in Congress. Well, of course it does. Of course it does. That satisfies a lot of requirements in a fascist slash socialist empire, which is what the United States is. Once again, I've proved that. I'll go ahead and link down the video below where I go through the definitions and terms of types of governments. And by actual dictionary terms, we're able to determine that the United States is a crony capitalist or a fascist or corporatist, pick your word, along with socialist government. But this is, as you may expect, talking about carbon tax. But I want to focus on this, what they're going to do with the money. First of all, I mean, it's an arbitrary idea anyway, but let's see. Kuhn's bill with Senate Dianne Feinstein, the Climate Action Rebate Act of 2019, would start greenhouse gas fees at $15 per metric ton of carbon and gradually increase them over time. It estimates that the tax would bring in $12 billion in revenue, which would then be distributed as part of a rebate to low-income families. Redistribution, gang. A portion would also be used to invest in clean energy, crony capitalism, and favoritism, corporatism, picking the winners and losers. That's what that is. The bill aims to reduce U.S. carbon emissions by 55% by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Gang, that's just not achievable. That's not an achievable goal unless some of the suppressed technologies that have been out there for a long time are finally allowed out. For instance, cars that run on water. Now, I don't know if I've ever really talked about that very much on this podcast, but that technology, cars that actually run on water, have been out for literally about 70, about 70 years. And we still don't have them. Now, they're using them in India now, but we don't have them here. So that's something to think about. If that technology had been fully developed, we would have cars that run on water today. And we would have had them probably in the 70s, just in time for the energy, quote unquote, energy crisis that happened in the 1970s. But I want to focus on this here, the carbon taxes, because this is something that was actually the whole idea behind it was developed during the Bush administration with Enron. That was back when Dick Cheney was heading up all these energy meetings and energy conferences. A lot of people in the press were complaining because they were secret and they couldn't get any information out of what was going on in these meetings. Well, this is part of what was talked about when Enron was brought in, because Enron was the leader of making markets out of thin air at the time. And by the way, I mean that literally. I'm not saying that because it's a carbon tax and carbon's part of the air. I'm literally saying Enron made markets out of nothing and sold them, and then used them to increase their stock prices. Well, that's what this is. The carbon tax is basically redistribution of wealth. It's just plain redistribution. Socialism. I'm not kidding you, gang. Let's look at this and actually, okay, take your emotions out of it. Take any science out of it. Let's look at what the end result is here. We have, let's see, 12 billion in revenue apparently in the United States per year. And then part of it would be distributed as a rebate to low-income families. That is plain Jane redistribution of wealth. That is a socialist tenet. A portion would also be used to invest in clean energy. Well, that's crony capitalism. They'd be able to pick the company that they gave the money to for quote-unquote clean energy, i.e. Solyndra, like Obama did. Gave, what was it, $500 million to a company called Solyndra that was in the phases of actually beginning their company. Then they went bankrupt right after they got that money from Obama, and they got to keep the money. It was you know, it was just ridiculous. And then the company, all the employees of the company walk away with millions and millions, if not billions, dollar. It was 500 million, so it's millions of dollars a piece. Gang, this is the kind of stuff that needs to be stopped. This is the pork barrel stuff. Now, as far as actually carbon being released in the air by the current technologies, well, that's because the government forces us to use these technologies. Now, I'm not a big believer that carbon dioxide is killing us. I am just not there. I just, I just, I can't wrap my brain around that yet because the science doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Even though Al Gore says, the debate is over. Well, he said that right when, basically he wrote his book. So there was no official debate, on this thing. He just said the debate is over. So I want you guys to remember that basically this is the kind of thing we're talking about for a very corrupt government. This is what corrupt governments do. Carbon taxes. So once again, taking your money away, giving it to the poor, and then giving the other half to their friends in the form of some kind of, clean energy act. So they basically would just give it away to their friends who are quote unquote in the industry. So the company that makes, air filters, whatever, suddenly they get some of that money, but of course the company president, donated a certain amount of money to whoever's president at the time. So all of a sudden he's getting money, because he's doing a great job to help him clean up the planet. Guys, this is very simple to see through. If you guys have any questions, please put them down in the comments section. I will link this story down below. It's not really necessary to read the rest of the story because it assumes that this is the real deal. But keep in mind that 12 billion in revenue is based on $15 per metric ton and gradually increase the fee over time. So there's no cap on how much they will actually start, quote unquote, charging people for, the use of, carbon-based fuels, gasoline, electricity, that's generated from coal or, from, I'm not going to say natural gas because I don't think there's a whole lot of CO2 off of natural gas. In fact, I don't think there's any at all. But it doesn't matter. Like I said, this is a scam, redistribution scam, and a crony capitalist scam. That's what this is. So, and then of course Washington gets to decide who gets the money. So, because that's what they do, right? They get to pick the winners and losers. They're smarter than the rest of us. They know better what to do with our money than we do. Therefore, they should have our money, all of it, and then they can decide who gets it. Guys, that's communism. The end goal here is communism. So, all right, I'll link this story down below. I'll basically I'll follow this. If this actually gets any traction in the halls of Congress, I will certainly continue following it. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. May God bless you all.